Eclipse Games, the podcast where we bring you the latest in gaming news, indie reviews, and everything else under the sun. I am your regular host, Kendall, and you can see that I'm alone at the moment. We have a normal episode coming up with my man Tony, and also my brother James coming back. You know, James Lyles, who you might remember from the draft episode. Pretty dope episode, but we had some issues with the beginning. You know, the recording got kind of messed up, technical issues. You'll notice the audio is a little rough, connection problems. You know, it happens, but bear with us. You know, we had to re-record the intro and the outro, so we'll start off a little different, but we have a pretty dope episode coming up, a console retrospective on the Sega Genesis. So look forward to all of our thoughts on that console, everything that we had to say about it, but I'll let the actual episode speak for itself. Enjoy. My name is Kendall, and I'm here with my co-host,
Tony, aka Max Afro Thunder.
Okay. Okay, you've been on a little roll. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I can't be mad at these. You know what I mean? But we are back again. We got a guest here joining us for the second time. My man James is in the building. James Lyles, say what's up to the people, man.
How y'all doing? How y'all doing?
Yes, sir. So don't mind us if there's like a minor delay, some audio issues. We are working with a different recording situation today, but we're going to make it rock. We got a special episode for you guys, back with episode 51. And instead of doing something that's, you know, current, you know, talking about the same old Microsoft conversation, the Switch 2, everybody's talking about all that stuff. We will get back to that, trust me. But we want to step back and kind of do a retrospective today. Start off a series of retrospectives, actually, that we're going to be doing on a few different consoles. Just kind of looking back, grading these consoles based on how impactful, how solid we thought they were, our overall opinions of them. We have a few different categories. And again, like everything cool we do on this fucking channel, this was Tony's idea. So, Tony, I'll let you kind of break it down to a deeper degree than I would.
All right, so yeah, I mean, it's real simple. Like Kendall said, it's a retrospective. We're basically going over what we thought about each of these consoles. This episode we're going to do the Sega Genesis, which personally for me was a favorite of mine, being that it was my first console, like to myself. So we got 5 categories. We're grading each of them out of 10. Now, each of us are going to have our own individual scores for these things as we talk about them. First category is console appearance. You know, how did it look? Was it ugly? Basically, or was it, you know, did it look good in your room? Second is controllers, you know, how they feel, how did the games kind of fit them, how they looked, just the overall aesthetic and play of the controllers. 3, graphics, you know, what games pushed the machine to its limit, what looked best on it, what was this best type of graphical style. Obviously the games themselves. And 5th is the impact that the console had on gaming as a whole.
I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad. So, one note I would make, I think we should switch around games and we should do games first. Because if we do graphics first, we're going to get to talking about the games anyway. So, maybe swap those two around so we can go through the games and then we can kind of.
We ain't beholden to the order. So, yeah, it's what, you know.
Yeah. You know, just small notes that we'll take. But we should start at the top with the parents. We can go ahead and start there. And this is one of the first examples. Well, not really one of the first. Honestly, they've been doing this since the start, but this is one of many examples of a console with more than one iteration. But interestingly enough, I feel like the Genesis kind of has a form factor that never goes away. Like all the Genesises look like Genesis. It's like they all genocide. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
I must say, I couldn't tell if you were struggling with that or was that your connection?
No, but I was taking my time. Maybe we're getting it right. All right? It's all them genocide. But I mean the old school one, you got the one with like the round top with the, you know, I think it had the red Genesis on it and it said like 16-bit underneath. Yeah. Something about that 16-bit down there, it just felt like a retro ass flex. Like, yeah, this how many bits we got. Y'all was rocking with that 8-bit bullshit, but we got 16 of those. I can appreciate that. So how we grading this? I don't want to start off, but what do you guys feel about the Genesis aesthetic?
Go ahead, take it, James.
For me, I mean, if I wanted to rate it, I'd probably give it like a 6, 7. I felt like it was cool, but it was basic. But I mean, just I guess where it was, like, you know, it was just a basic console. It was just like a little black thing in the corner. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel like it really pushed no boundaries or nothing like that. But I mean, for what it was in this time frame, like it was cool. I remember it was so, you know, the console was so black that I remember as a kid, I would trip over it because I would forget that it was in my room, you know, when the lights was off, you know.
That's actually crazy, but I can see it. I mean, you can't see it is the point, but I feel you. I feel you on that. All right, what about you, Tony? How you feeling about it?
Yeah, I'm about at a 7 myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a 7 now. Like as a kid, I would have said like an 8.5, because like as a kid, it had this kind of like almost race car aesthetic. Like you had a left, you had all your buttons and shit. You had the reset button, the
Yeah,
power button, and for whatever weird reason, I've never seen this on a console before or since. It had a fucking volume control on it, which I thought was the weirdest shit. But it felt like some, cockpit shit where you could push it up. I need to go up a little higher. So as a kid, I would say 8.5. But now looking at it, like James said, it's a basic console, but it's clean enough. So I would say a 7.
I can respect it. I'm gonna be a little different than you guys, and I'm gonna give it an 8 because I feel like the Genesis is what I think of when I think of like consoles in the '90s. Like that's the archetype. Like you know how they put the silhouette up there for like different. Like that's the one for the '90s. You know what I mean? The same way like the 360 is for like the 2000s. Like that era. Like you put the 360 as the console of this generation. Even though we'll talk about the Super Nintendo another day, but yeah, that's that form factor to me is pretty. It's like '90s futuristic, and I can fuck with that. Like I can dig. So I'll give it an 8. But I feel what y'all saying. It is a pretty straightforward console. I just like that. All right. So next category we got is controllers. This is going to be a divisive one for many reasons. I think. And I will start this one off. I'm gonna go ahead and get Edge on a 6. I'm not gonna lie. I like the shape of the controller. You know what I mean? Like, I like the form factor. There's too many motherfucking buttons on that bitch. Why is there 6 buttons? I have limited hand real estate. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here? It's just a lot of buttons.
Yeah, I would agree on the 6. Only because, like I said, there's a lot of buttons, and some of the buttons had no functions. It was just there.
Bro,
okay, maybe different game, they would use some buttons, but no, it was the same like 3 buttons that were never used in any game, anything like that.
No single soul out there has ever seen push the C button. It's in any game, not one time on the Genesis, right? So I'm just
and to me, it just looked like a boomerang. Like, so I guess it was okay. Like if I was mad at the game, like I could throw it and it'd be okay. But like
come right back. It'll come right back. You can start
come right
playing
back to me. But other than that, like, yeah, I'll give it a 6. Like, yeah, it was just too many buttons, and a lot of the buttons wasn't functional for no reason.
So you motherfuckers is generous, because I'll give that motherfucker a 3.
Respect.
I'm gonna tell you why I'm gonna give it a 3. I'm giving it a 3, one, because like y'all said, that 6 button shit was some bullshit, and we couldn't use half the buttons. The other issue is that when they switched up and went to the 3 button, that shit felt worse. Because my issue is that you look back at it now, you think about how many consoles we've played where the buttons are in a horizontal configuration. Because at some point we all realize that shit doesn't work, especially when you're playing fighting games.
Right.
Like somebody had to figure out who, like, the first person to do the diamond configuration, fucking genius. It was perfect.
Like,
but that horizontal shit, nah, man.
And you know what's funny about the diamond is that it's just an evolution of what they was doing. Like, you take 2 of them buttons off, and then you got A, B, X, Y, and that's pretty much in that diamond.
And that's
like,
it.
If you look at it, it takes a couple steps. So I ain't faulting them too much.
Dog, I guarantee you, if I played the Lion King with a diamond button configuration, I wouldn't feel the way about it that I do now.
Man,
playing the Lion King on a horizontal button, no.
That hard ass game, man.
I'm not guaranteeing that shit. I'm not going to guarantee that one. But
no, because you know how I know this? Because I bought the Switch version when they put the collection on the Switch, and I was tearing through that fucking game.
Okay. You are cherry some now.
But I'm about to say, also your skill level might be different now.
Look, my skill level. No. Look, no, I'm putting it on the controller because I still had the same issues. Like I still had the issue with the fucking birds and the can't wait to be king level. It was just a matter of me actually figuring out the timing for once. And because I had the buttons in the right spot, I could figure out the timing.
Yeah, I can appreciate it because honestly,
but fuck that game.
You don't need that hindrance on top of the bullshit of that game. Yeah, I feel you.
Collision detection was ass.
Also, on that controller, if I remember, there was a turbo button. But what
yes,
it did, it did nothing.
It did nothing. Not even on Gunstar Heroes. It did nothing.
How you got away with having a Mad Catz controller built into your shit is beyond me. but you did it, Sega. I'm not mad. That was the canon default controller with some Mad Cat shit. That's how I feel about the Genesis. But speaking of Aladdin or Lion King and the like, those Disney games, that collection, let's talk about the games, man, because it's the real meat and potatoes of this shit. And I'm not going to start here. I'm going to defer to whoever wants to jump off because I know y'all got a lot to say.
Go ahead,
I'm not going to start because I can go. So
okay, all right. I'll take it. That's a 10 for me. Flat out, okay. Straight up and down, that's a 10.
You were the brave one who was willing to say it first.
Man, look, that's not a difficult conversation for me. I mean, like I said, I'm biased because it was my first console, but you got shit like Streets of Rage, Vector Man, Comic Zone, Gunstar Heroes. Then you get into just like sports games, College Slam, Madden 94. Nigga, even the Tiny Toons Acme All-Stars game was fucking incredible. Like that shit had some heat. They made a game about a dolphin and it was heat.
Fire. It was inspired. That's facts.
That game got game. That console got games on games. It's one of them ones, and I kind of wish that Sega was able to continue past the Dreamcast, just because it's very clear that they knew what they were doing game wise. Because I mean, like I said, Gunstar Heroes is probably an all time like run and gun game to me. That's like one of the Genesis classics that doesn't get talked about enough.
It really doesn't. It really does. I guess I'll jump in so James can kind of take us home because I know you got plenty to say. Like Genesis was interesting for me because I didn't have one. My brother did for a while, so it's kind of like a console that I played. Like, but it was kind of one of those ones that got me started. Like I had an NES, and when I wanted to jump up to that 16-bit super high fidelity graphics, I jumped to the Genesis, and so it kind of gave it this air of like, oh yeah, this is that hot shit. Like you can't play this except when he's not home, you know what I mean, or when. Like he lets you, or some cool happens, and you get to play Sonic or Road Rash, bro. Like, what an incredible game that needs to come back. I want to talk about Vector Man for a second because that was a weird ass game, and
it was so good.
I just want to stop and acknowledge the existence of this bizarre ass platformer with like made of balls that they tried to bring back as a shooter on the 360, and nobody talks about that either. That shit was weird.
I don't remember them bringing that back. I just know there were 3 Genesis games.
Bro, they had a shooter called Vector Man. I think it was 360. It might have been. It was definitely 360. Don't have me lying. They brought it back and it did not work. It really didn't. But Vector Man at the time was dope. Comic Zone, all timer, bro. Like,
thanks.
Just as far as like unique ass games, you know what I mean? You got shit like Shining Force. Shining Force 2 introduced me to like strategy games and like paved the way for me to jump into stuff like Fire Emblem later. Like, man, I'm not even going to dive into the Sonic games and how. I've talked about it before, but Sonic and Knuckles still to this day, I'm like, I've seen motherfuckers add new entire campaigns to games. Like we got live service games, and I still can't wrap my head around the fact that y'all put the cartridge in the other cartridge and made it have another like you expanded this old ass game that you already had out. It just blew my mind. So I'm gonna probably give it Sega Genesis. I don't want to give it I'm going to give it a 9. I'm not going to lie. Because I feel like it wasn't a perfect catalog of games. But it was definitely up there.
I gotta go.
You can take us home.
I gotta go with it. I gotta go with it.
I can respect it.
It's for me. This system is different for me. You know, this system was something that me and my uncle played a lot. You know what I'm saying? So it had sentimental value. But like most people that know me know, like my favorite game growing up was Streets of Rage. So like. That was my game. I spent hours playing that game, especially Streets of Rage 2 with my man Skate. You know what I'm saying? Like I thought that was me. And I couldn't see a lick. But I was like, it's a kid in the game, like beating on people. I was like, yeah, that's me. You know. And like I said, for me, like you said, like we can go on to Sonic all day. I mean, I can be here all day. Like you said, Sonic and Knuckles was just a different type of game. I don't even know how to like really like get into depth about that. But then you got games like Shinobi that was like dope. I mean, we ain't gonna talk about Mortal Kombat. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like Mortal Kombat on the Genesis was it. Like Altered Beast was a beastly game. I loved Altered Beast. Like that was one of my favorite games also. But then we ain't gonna get into like my favorite, like Toe Jam and Earl. Bro, like,
oh man,
like Earl
I hit Blockbuster up for them so many times.
Exactly.
Like that was one of those type of games.
And then I felt like, Sega also had a lot of like the movie rights games, you know what I'm saying? So you had the games like Rambo and different things like that. Like you said, you can go into the we could talk about Lion King all day and how much I hated that game and couldn't beat that shit to save my damn life. We can go into the Aladdin and different things like that. So like for me, and then like you got NBA Jam. I know it was on a lot of different games, but I really played it more like on Sega, you know what I'm saying? So like, man, I mean, it's definitely a 10 for me. Like the games were just and then another game that I played, I don't know how I got it, but that damn Michael Jackson game. I don't know.
Moonwalker was my shit.
Yep.
That game had no business being that fun.
I ain't bring it up because I'd have been here talking about that motherfucker.
I was about to say there's no chance that we bring up this console and Tony don't talk about the Michael Jackson video game.
Because I'd have took over the whole episode. You have no idea how much I love it.
Yeah, I believe it. I don't even know how I got it. Somebody just gave it to me, and I was just like, a Michael Jackson game, and I played. I was like, yo, this shit is fucking fire, and I don't know why it's this good.
Just I don't know.
No
they really did
that good.
Not at all.
And the arcade joint is even more fire.
It is.
Which is nuts. I didn't even know. Like I didn't know that. So that's dope as fuck.
It is dope. And one of my favorites also was an X-Men game on there. It was dope. You get to choose the characters. You had to go through all these different levels. Of course, everybody know my favorite X-Men is Gambit, so I just kept choosing Gambit all the time. But you had to be strategic though, because sometimes like it was one level where the level was like blowing up. So if you chose somebody like Storm who might not have ran so fast, you would die. So you had to choose like somebody that was faster. So I would choose like Nightcrawler because he could teleport. So that made it like
my favorite X-Men. I respect that even more. My guy.
So I mean, 10 out of 10 for his first 8 games. 10 out of
10. We can really sit here and go like all day. The more y'all talk, the more I'm like, we didn't even talk about Kid Chameleon, which is like a weird ass platformer. Yeah. Like you know what I mean? Like there's so many goddamn games.
Yeah,
Golden Axe, bro.
Man, yeah,
that was my shit. You know what I mean? One that I want to throw out. Street Fighter 2. They had one of the most iconic versions of Street Fighter 2. Ghosts and Goblins. Like it's crazy. One I want to make sure we mention before we jump over to graphics. Did y'all play? This is a weird one. Did y'all play Flicky back in the day at all?
Yeah, that's how we ended up with Sonic 3D Blast. Yeah.
It was. Yes, thank you. Because I was like, it's either gonna be a dead silent room after I ask that question, or somebody's gonna film it. This was the most random ass video game about fucking Sonic's little animal buddies, and I was so hooked. When I was playing this, I was like 5 or 6, mind you. So this was way more my speed. I didn't need to be playing Roller Rash. I needed to be playing Flicky. And Flicky was fun, man. That dream was really addictive. I just wanted to throw out that Sonic's little buddies got a game back. But
also
we can go ahead.
You got to throw Earthworm Jim.
Yes.
Earthworm Jim. Huge. Man, there's so much.
I was saying, the more you actually sit down and think about that motherfucker, man, I'm telling you.
I'm giving it a 9 because honestly, it felt like I wasn't a Genesis kid. I was more of a Super Nintendo, and I'm always going to compare the two. And it's like I gotta, we're gonna talk about Super Nintendo one day, but we'll. I want to get to Impact because Impact is going to be really interesting. But first, we got to talk about graphics because graphics is kind of a part of that Impact. I don't think people realize how much Sega Genesis was really stepping the game up, like in that era. Like Super Nintendo was dope. It did a lot. You know what I mean? Especially coming off the NES, but Sega Genesis, I can't recall if it came out first before the Super Nintendo. I'm pretty sure they had to put that out to match that that Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis energy. But I know that the Sega Genesis was really, really like powerful for its time. You know what I mean? Like it was not even necessarily a graphical powerhouse as far as I know, but it had such different art styles for all those games. Look at something like Comic Zone and then Vector Man. And then Sonic, and then, you know what I mean? All these different games had such unique styles. So I'll probably give, for its time and for what they did with their hardware, I'll probably give the graphics a 9 also, personally.
Yeah, I agree. I'll definitely give it a 9. Just like I said, for its time frame and what it was. Like I said, it definitely was a step up. Like I'm just thinking of like games like Mortal Kombat where it was an actual man, like that was an actual person, like in the game, bro. Right. So when you think of stuff like that, like, and just like you said, like just going to the different games, like you can go to Alter Beast, you can go to Golden Axe, and you can take it to Earthworm Jim, and all those different games, they all looked and felt different. Like it it wasn't like, okay, like we just copy and paste it and then put this to that. It was actually like they was getting all they could out of that system, honestly.
Yeah, I think I'm with y'all on that. That's a 9. I mean, like you said, when you consider the different types of games that we had, I mean, the Sonic games were fucking incredible to be able to move that fast and still process every enemy in there. They were still moving the way they needed to move. Everything was animating the way they needed to. When you consider like a lot of the stuff that they were doing with that console, man, they were kind of ahead of their time.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like the Genesis was, and honestly, man, I want to just. So wait, did you get your ranking? I forgot to mention that part.
Yeah, it was 9.
Okay, you got to get with place. 9s across the board. Because, like, honestly, this is like going to lead straight into Impact. Man, I think Impact for me might be my first 10 out of 10. In fact, it is going to be my first 10 out of 10. I'm just going to throw that out there now because this console was built to take down the juggernaut that was Nintendo. And Nintendo was video games at this time. Like, even more so than, like, now, like how we look at, like, you know, platformers and things that they pioneer is like they have a place in this industry that nobody can really touch. Back then, bro, there's a reason why for like 10, 20 years, your grandmother called every console the Nintendo. Like, they had a hold on this shit, bro. And Sega came through and just took over. Like, for a brief period of time, Sonic was actually beating Mario, which was something that's hard to even wrap your head around for that time because Mario, I mean, it's no stretch to say he saved games. Like, this was during that period where like stuff like ET was coming out and really shaking whether people believed in the industry going forward. And my man Mario, I mean, Sonic and Mario were the two that kind of like helped usher things forward. Sonic came through and really put his stamp on shit. Mortal Kombat, like we got to talk about the fact that the ratings that you see on games today were made because of Mortal Kombat. That game did that, you know, and that was a game I still associate with the Genesis. So I'm giving it a 10. I don't want to go too long, but that's where I feel they get their 10 out of 10.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, Impact definitely a 10. Just like you said, like, I mean, you got things like Sonic, like without Sonic, it wouldn't be a lot. I mean, you know, so to me, yeah, definitely the Impact. I mean, you got to just think about that led to, you know, things like the Dreamcast, which I thought was a system that was way ahead of its time, you know, at that time frame, you know, different things like that, you know, bringing out a lot of different games that, again, I know one day we'll go into the Dreamcast and I can talk about that a lot too. But, you know, like I said, if it wasn't for the, like I said, the impact of, you know, Sonic coming through and games like Mortal Kombat and things like that, like who knows what gaming would be like, you know. We'll probably still be playing things in arcade, which I'm okay with. But, you know, like if it wasn't for the success of like the Sega and all of those things like that, like we wouldn't have like the PS5s and things that we have today. So if it wasn't for that, and then also, like you said, pushing the graphics. So, you know, going to Super Nintendo and then pushing the graphics, other systems that came after push graphics more, you know, so we wouldn't have the Uncharted's and all of this stuff if we didn't go back and have the Earthworm Gems and the games like that, or like I said, the Comic Zones and how it switched up and you went from up and down and all these different things. You wouldn't have those games now if it wasn't for those games to pave the way. So definitely good.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement there. That's 10s across the board. You know, and I'm getting in my comparison bag, man. That Sonic and Mario, the way the console war kicked off there. I mean, you talking about Sega does what Nintendo don't. Like that shit hit every time I saw the commercial. It hit. Like them niggas was going to war, man. And like you said, they saved gaming. Like that's Magic and Bird. Like the NBA was in bad way until Magic and Bird did they shit. And it's the same thing with gaming. Until Sega 100%. Came in and actually put the screws to Nintendo, man, that shit was looking dark. But it only works if Sega puts out a quality fucking product. You know, in the same way that, like, as a wrestling fan, dog, I stopped watching WWE for years until AEW came in and kicked the fucking door down. And then it was different. Now niggas was at war, and it was like, all right, we gotta, you know, we gotta tighten the fuck up. It took WWE a while to tighten the fuck up, but eventually they did a little bit. But still,
that's because NXT made them do it. Well, I'm sorry, I ain't like.
And there's also that. There's also that. Triple H kind of put the screws defense on that too. But yeah, man, like when you really look at it, Sega saved gaming. Like Nintendo had to step their shit up, but they only did it because Sega existed. Like we're only sitting here talking about gaming the way that we do because of Sega. We'll get around to when the Saturn dropped at another episode, but
I
still,
cannot wait.
still,
Can't wait.
Sega,
Boy.
Sega Save Gaming, man, that's a 10 impact.
Man, listen. So
All that Sega
I'll
CD, we ain't gonna talk about that either.
Man,
we are going to talk about all that. We're gonna have us a deep because listen, I happened to just read a book about Sega's like whole history from like inception to like Dreamcast and Nintendo's whole history right after that, which went up to the Wii, was a little bit further. But I got a lot of thoughts on that one. I done heard some insider stories and shit. The way this went down was crazy. Like, I don't want to get into it too much because, like you said, I do want to go console by console and get it. You know, that's why Impact is a hard conversation because we want to talk about the Dreamcast real bad. I know we all do for real, but
oh yeah,
we gotta hold that off. You know what I mean? But I feel you. Like one other thing, I feel like speaking of the Mortal Kombat thing, I think Sega kind of matured this shit a little bit. Not that Nintendo wasn't mature because at the time you got to think about it. Metroid, like OG Metroid and Zelda, were about as mature as you get in video games. Like. They weren't really doing too much more than swords and guns and shit. Like they had all the mature stuff you could look for, except little red sprites, you know what I mean, to pop out of characters. But Sega, they kind of came through and like picked it up a little bit further than that to where like even when graphics got better, Nintendo, if we went down that road where they had no competition and they were the Madden of games and they was just doing their thing and it was like, you're gonna buy our new thing because it's the only new thing in town. We might have had a million like people trying to clone Mario, Zelda, Pikmin, you know, all the shit that Nintendo does that they do best. And I feel like the industry wouldn't be in the place that it is now if not for that. So I feel you. I think they did kind of save it. Again, I want to talk about PlayStation in one way too. That PS1 is important, but
oh yeah, we get there. Because Nintendo created their own worst enemy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that story is crazy. But and we all know the story, but even just digging deep into it is a very fascinating conversation. But yeah, no, I feel like now is a good time for us to tally up our scores, kind of see where the Genesis ranks. This would be good. It'd be kind of interesting to just compare everything once we get through a bunch of consoles. We can do like a tier list of consoles based off this shit, actually, which is kind of dope. But as far as mine, I'm gonna just recap my rankings. I gave the console design an 8 out of 10. Controller, I gave a 6 out of 10. Games, 9 out of 10. Graphics, I gave a 9 out of 10. And for Impact, I got a 10 out of 10, which added together is 42 out of 50. So whoever's faster at math.
All right, so console appearance, I gave a 7. Controllers, I gave a 3. Graphics, I gave a 9. Games and Impact, I gave 10s to. Gave me a total score of 39 out of 50.
Okay. 3 out of 10 really hit.
Yeah. Fuck them controllers, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I gave console a 7, controller 6, graphics 9, games 10, Impact 10. So with that, it gave me a total score of 32.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
That's wild because that's his favorite console. We all had higher scores.
It is, but just like you said, just the look of it is not nothing. And the controller, like I said, was just it could have did more. But everything else, like I said about the console, was amazing. So
yeah. Now that listen, there's a lot of factors.
It all makes sense.
We on the marketing team right now. We're not doing just like how much you like the games. Is this joint pretty on my shelf? Do I want it on my shelf today? I don't know. I get it. But that's very interesting. I had mine at a 42, which I didn't expect to have the highest score talking about. I'm a Nintendo guy, but we'll have to continue this series and kind of see where everything else falls. So any final thoughts on the Genesis era before we go ahead and wrap this up, man? Just like give Sega a fond farewell to their best time, because I think this was the peak of Sega, in my opinion.
I mean, we'll save that for the Dreamcast discussion, but I don't think it was the peak of Sega.
Okay,
but no, I do think that Sega had them won with this. Like I said, they came out and they first shot and gave us a heater of a console, and then fucked around and gave us a heater of a handheld with the Game Gear. But we're gonna get around to that too, because I still got that motherfucker. But yeah, man, that's just like classic games, just a classic situation all around. One last game I got to bring up before we get about this motherfucker is Wacky Worlds. that was one of my favorites, like as a kid, because it was just one of them weird creation suite joints. It just had some like dope music, and it's like Sonic and Tails was integrated in it. It was just a fire ass like just fuck around game.
I can fuck with that. I can respect it. All right, man. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and bring this one to a close for now until we can have that debate about Sega's peak, because we don't have that conversation. We didn't even talk about like honestly, we should have threw the Sega CD because technically that's part of the Genesis. The goddamn 32X should have went in this combo, but we don't need to delve into that shit. You know, we'll save that for the weird offshoot. Like we'll do an episode where we just rank the fucking weirdest consoles, like throw the Virtual Boy in there and just like see which one is like actually worth something, you know. But say that for another day, man.
Yeah, and that's pretty much where we're going to end the episode, man. Really dope discussion. It was fascinating to see where everybody's rankings lie, but we did have some issues with the recording cutting off at the end, of course. That is how it goes. But definitely let us know, man, in the comments below how you feel about the Genesis, what consoles you want to see us break down in the same way. We want to hear your thoughts, man. Hit us up on Twitter at Eclipse Theory. That's our handle there. Eclipse.theory is our handle on Instagram. And definitely leave your feedback because we want to make this a show for you guys. So till next time, I am Kendall. That was Tony and James. And make sure you keep gaming.